Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's Sunday reset. And I want to use this time as a sort of introduction for the September homecoming series. I had the idea to sort of go back and revisit some of my earlier videos. A lot of them aren't very I'm going to try to be kind here. The audio quality is questionable on a lot of them, and also just I've learned a lot about sequencing. That definitely is the big one. And also, I have been feeling sort of a call to return to why I even started any of this. And I feel like to set the tone for the entire series, I thought it might be a good idea to share my introduction to yoga and all of the steps that I took to get to the point where I started making videos. Yeah, so 4 years ago, I ended an abusive relationship. It was a really hard time, and it was definitely one of those earth-shattering moments, we'll say. And anyone who has left an abusive relationship or knows someone who has done the same thing, there's always like this period afterward. You go with it. There's always a period afterward where you sort of re-examine other aspects of your life, and you start to realize where other relationships mirror the abusive relationship, and you also start to examine aspects of your life that led to you finding yourself in this particular relationship. Like, you realize other relationships that may have set the tone and normalized a lot of things that you accepted in a relationship that maybe weren't healthy. And so leaving an abusive relationship often causes a greater upheaval of a person's life as they start to examine further, you know. So I was at that point, and this was maybe a year or less than that after this had all initially taken place, and I was still very much in a healing space. I had recently moved, and I was taking a walk through the neighborhood, and I happened to pass a yoga studio. And for some reason, the name stuck with me, and I went home and I started, I pulled up their website and I was scrolling through and looking at the classes they offered and just getting a general feel for the space. And I felt like it was a place that, was inviting. It felt like a place where I wouldn't be judged for, being a beginner. At that point, I had just kind of started watching Yoga with Cassandra, and following along with her video was at the point that I had started, I couldn't even touch my toes, like not at all flexible. I felt called anyway, and I kept looking at the website and going back and forth on whether I should sign up for a class. But I did. I did eventually sign up for that class, and I actually went. And I just remember when I got there, I talked to the owner of the studio. She was the one teaching the class, and she talked a little bit about herself, talked about the space, and then other students started to show up, and I was watching her talk to them, and they were all mostly regulars, and just getting a feel for the atmosphere. And I remember I wasn't nervous, and we went into the studio. I set up my mat, and class started, and I was kind of towards the back, so I felt like no one was really gonna see me being a novice. But even without that, I still wasn't nervous. I just enjoyed the class, and I was familiar with a lot of the poses from watching my videos at home, and so I felt really comfortable. And at the end of the Shavasana, I just remember when the teacher turned the lights back on. I just remember feeling like I was floating. It was just this insane feeling. And I walked home, and I remember I lived up a hill, and so I was like halfway up this hill when I finally actually realized that I hadn't thought about anything that had happened to me, and I wasn't mentally spiraling like I had been ever since everything happened. And I was just like, that was my first moment of presence in over a year. And it was the first time that I had the thought that there was more to me than what I had just been going through. That was big. And it was such a... Looking back now, I realize that was like a big turning point for me. That was one of the little turns on the path, Yoga for me was sort of like this gateway to a peace and presence that I didn't know was missing from my life. And just thinking about the fact that one random July, 3 years ago, I was just out for a walk, and I found a place, signed up for a yoga class, and my life was never the same again. It's the fact that it's been 3 years is crazy. I don't know, but that is why I started doing yoga, and that is why I started taking it so seriously, and why I ended up on this path where I felt like I needed to share my journey. That was, I started in July, and then I think April that following year, I posted my first video. And here I am 2 years later with this channel, looking back on that beginning, and that was my why. I wanted to invite people into that same space and in that same presence, and offer them that same peace that I found through yoga. And that is my why. And so this homecoming series is all about my why and inviting people into maybe finding their own why on their yoga mat, you know? So for the next 5 weeks, because somehow it worked out that there's 5 Tuesdays in September, I will be sharing a video inspired by one of my past videos and inviting you guys to join me as we take a walk into the fall. And hopefully if you've never done yoga before, maybe this is an opportunity for you to start. Even if you have been practicing for a while, maybe this is a moment to refresh and remind yourself of your own personal why you started doing yoga. And maybe you find something new on the 4 corners of your mat. Anyway, this is kind of a long Sunday reset. We've been getting longer lately, but I'm not gonna hate on that. Hopefully something resonated. Hopefully you enjoyed that random story about a July 3 years ago and how it ended up in me having a whole YouTube channel. Anyway, hopefully you have a good rest of your week, and I hope that you are well. And thank you so much for sitting with me for today. Let me give you one of these. I can't do a little bow here because I'm holding my phone in my other hand, but I bow to you anyway.